Hello everyone, welcome to AI Product Builders. Today we are excited to welcome Pramod Rao, co-founder and CEO of Threado AI. Pramod is a seasoned expert in easy growth and operations with over 8 years of experience at Zomato under his belt. At Threado AI, he's focused on revolutionizing customer support using AI, helping businesses seamlessly engage with customers across platforms like Slack and Discord. Join us as we dive into Pramod's journey and impact of Threado AI in the world of customer support. Pramod, welcome to AI Product Builders. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks so much, Sri Lakshmi. Thanks for inviting me and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So, Pramod, could you please tell me about yourself and what inspired your creation of Threado AI and how has the journey been since its inception?
Sure, yeah. I started Threado AI in 2020, just after the pandemic. I was on a professional break at that point, and it's been close to a 4-year journey since then. But what inspired me to start Threado AI, the backstory to it is during my professional break, which was for about 1.5 years, I explored 6 other startup ideas, but it always felt like I landed on something big, would spend 2 months, and then it will fizzle out. So I think I started Threado, back then, and just stuck around with it, kept tinkering around the product, and I was pretty hell bent that I'm going down this path and continued working on it, right? So, but the inspiration lied on comes from my previous experience at Zomato. So I spent close to 8.5 years there, right? From the early days when we were just about 10 people to and back in 2010 till about 2019 when we'd grown to like multiple countries and multiple business functions. At the core, I think what we did really well, and I was fortunate to be part of that journey, was to be very customer centric, like in terms of we had a very strong community approach, and also we did things differently. We wouldn't everything was built in house. We would do marketing and like user growth. Everything was done in house. It was very be in touch with the customers, and traditional support feels like there's a brand and then there's a logo, and then you reach out and the brand is trying to connect with you. We completely had a flipped approach to it, which is essentially be in touch with the customers, we used to get them to office and do a lot of things which don't scale. But I think that at the core, that I felt was the backbone, and that sort of led to Zomato's DNA over the years. And when I started Threado, I wanted to take some of those learnings and productize that, right? We started out as a product that helped companies build communities for their users. It was a community of support for their customers, and help brands create spaces where they can help drive these connections between their customers and help them connect with each other, learn from each other, and so on. So started with that, and bootstrapped it for the first 9-10 months, and then when it got to a point where needed to start hiring for tech, I met my co-founder and CTO around that point. We changed the direction around that time, and felt that and at that point you would see brands embracing or moving away from traditional forms of marketing, which is just advertising on third-party platforms, to more focus on first-party data, building the direct connection with the brands. So you also saw explosion of Slack, Discord, these platforms, and so on. So we built a tool that would help marketers and brands basically to help them connect with their customers seamlessly across different touch points, right? So did that for a couple of years. Learned that they're trying to solve a problem with how to provide best form of support to their customers, right? And we kept seeing that over and over again, and And that's when we started working towards Threado AI, which is essentially a co-pilot for customer support teams, with the
Mm-hmm.
aim that we're building tools to help companies extend the best possible support to their customers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we essentially see ourselves as not AI, not AI that replaces jobs, but essentially AI that empowers existing support and community teams to help them do their job better, right?
Got
And
it.
that's where we are at today. Um, in terms of where like traction, I think we have been fortunate to work with some of the best global brands like out there who have a deep focus on providing great support and caring for their customers. So like folks at Notion, Mixpanel, Triple Whale, Morning Brew. So these are some of the brands that use Threado. And looking forward to helping more and more brands do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I want to dig deep into your product. How did Trado start? How did you leverage AI to
Mhm.
transform the way companies provide the best customer service to their customers?
Sure. Yeah, I think as I was mentioning, we start seeing like support being the core need,
Mhm.
and the problem that we were trying to address, essentially is as a company is growing, right? And I'm talking about, let's say, a company at a stage where they have hundreds of customers and they're growing from
Yeah.
there, right? How can scaling up support becomes a challenge in the sense that one, your product is becoming more complex, so your documentation, your how the product works, what can people do with it, and all of that like
Hmm.
is a mess. There are different, it's scattered across various touch points. um, you have increasing customers, which means increasing queries coming in, which is a
Yeah.
great thing. But operationally, it's a challenge to, when you are sort of solving queries for like tens of customers versus solving for hundreds of thousands of customers is very very different.
Different. Yeah.
So you don't want to lose the quality, because I think in a world where every category is commoditized in terms of product features, what stands out is how well you service the customers and delight them,
Hmm.
right? So we saw that as a constant problem, right? And so that's when we started thinking that, hey, we build this product for companies to extend support through communities, right? But why not, let's go after the bigger problem, which is how can they scale support overall?
Yeah.
And we see the landscape in this form. So there are three forms of support like a company can offer. One, I think obviously with the emergence of AI, there is this AI self-serve support that they can, customers can get, which is essentially, I have a query and then I ask, and then the bot, based on its knowledge, answers it, and
Yeah.
without any human intervention. So that's like completely AI based. And then the second is agent based support, which needs like where what AI can't resolve, but like there's a human
Yeah.
intervention needed. And then third, I think, is like the community support, which is essentially you still need a human connection, which could be other users,
Yes.
who've used it. So we see these three buckets, and we were solving for the third bucket, which is the community support. And
Hmm.
today we've gone into the second bucket, which is essentially agent-based support, and we are an assistant to the agents, to help them
Got
resolve
it.
faster, to help them um, harness the information that's probably scattered across tools like Notion, their Slack,
Yeah.
their could be in their Confluence docs and so on. So making the agents a lot more efficient in what they do, so that they can delight the customer. So essentially that's how we see the landscape and where we can play. But yeah, that's the thought process of Threado AI at this point. Yeah.
Got it. So how many platforms do you currently support? Like how many integrations?
Yeah, so we just added, I think, an integration a couple of days back. So we're currently at 8 integrations, but yeah, it would be like,
Mhm.
Confluence, Notion. But yeah, before I think listing out, I think we see it as four types of data sources, right? So
Hmm.
one is your knowledge base, right?
Yes.
Which company knowledge base. So we integrate with like Confluence and Notion. We
Hmm.
also allow you to upload CSVs or PDFs too. So
Mm-hmm.
those are some of the sources for knowledge bases, right? So
Mm-hmm.
second is you have customer interactions, um, and that has a wealth of information as well, right?
Yes.
So those are ticketing platforms, like we integrate with Zendesk, Freshdesk as well, and there are also interactions in your communities, so
Yes.
community conversations. So that's where Slack and Discord come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, and then there's structured data, which is more like tabular format, for which we have CSV uploads right now. We plan to do like API integrations also in the future. And then there's unstructured data, which is essentially your internal Slack workspace where there's the support or community team has discussions with product team, engineering team. So there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
real-time unstructured data, which
Got it.
knowledge bases are always outdated, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that in your Slack, there's wealth of data as well. So we built it in a way where you can train Threado on all of these buckets,
Mm-hmm.
so that any customer facing team member is able to get the information from all of these places. So they don't have to follow up. They don't have to worry about, hey, okay, do I have the complete information or not? Threado sort of like just abstracts all of
Yeah.
that away and gives an answer. Yeah.
Yeah. So talking about how Trader works, like,
Yeah.
so basically, I as a customer agent, I ask Trader in a very natural language, basically, what's happening around this
Mhm.
customer. So what happens next? Like, how does Trader help customer agents? If
Yeah,
I have to
sure.
speak very precisely.
Yeah, so we train. So like I said, these are the data sources that we sort of
Mm.
enable you to train it on, and it's a self-serve dashboard, so you can set this up in minutes. Um, and then like this data is stored on a vector database,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever a query comes in, we sort of match,
Yeah.
based on the content that's there, and then we're using GPT-4 to formulate the answer. Like we pass chunks
Yeah.
of data, for it to formulate, and
Mm-hmm.
the AI responds only if it has like a confidence score of 80% or above, right? And
Got it.
but the way we do that, how agents benefit is essentially you can get the support inside of Slack, right? And also inside of like your ticketing platforms, right? So we built it as a Slack app as of now and a Chrome extension. So
Mm-hmm.
the Chrome extension will be going live this week. But the Slack app essentially allows you to, you can create a channel in your internal workspace. The teams, support teams or
Mm-hmm.
community teams can ask questions and they can get answers, and links to like relevant sources there. So,
Yeah.
it reduces time, that goes into like follow-ups, right? Or time that goes into researching or writing an answer. It removes any doubts on, hey, especially like repeat queries and so on,
Yes.
it sort of makes it
It
super
summarizes.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we see like any customer facing. So we see support agents right now, but we also see like customer success teams use it, pre-sales team use it. So any customer facing team member can use Threado to like literally be on top of things and be 2x or 3x more efficient.
Got it. Very interesting. So with the use of Threado and other companies, do they see drop in their usage? For example, like Zendesk or Notion. I don't go to Zendesk to maybe understand what's happening over there. Maybe I ask just in Threado.
Oh no. So what we do is, we actually integrate with Zendesk and Freshdesk. The idea
Yes.
is most of the support teams, if they're using Zendesk or Freshdesk, they would be spending time there, right? To resolve queries.
Okay.
We exist as a Chrome extension, providing like you can think of us as an assistant to the support team. Like they can ask questions instead of like context switching or me following up with
Okay.
someone on
Got it.
WhatsApp or
Yeah.
a Slack. Everything is available there,
Yeah.
and we give a summary of the ticket, an AI generated response. You can insert
Mm-hmm.
it, and
Got
you
it.
can also have a conversation if you need further information. So just
Yeah.
like have a chat there with this helper basically. Yeah.
Yeah. I think now I understand it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. So talking about users and the product growth, who are your users? Like, mostly
Mhm.
where are they based out of? As you mentioned, you
Yeah.
have obviously some great companies under your belt like Notion, Mixpanel, but could
Mhm.
you tell me who are your customers?
Yeah. So 70% of our customers are based in US, right? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe about 10 or 15% would be split between like India, UK, Canada or so. But our typical persona who we reach out to would be the director, VP, or head of support or
Mm-hmm.
community, right? And predominantly B2B SaaS companies,
SaaS, yeah,
right? And Series B and above. So that's like 200 employees and above would be the range where we look at basically.
got it. So regarding the growth, right? I really liked your Threado launch video. It was very new. So
Yeah.
was this part of your growth strategy?
I don't know. It just came up as an idea from one of our team members, Ritika. So she heads like most of the marketing initiatives. So
Uh-huh.
and made me and my co-founder Abhishek uncomfortable, and we felt okay, let's fly with it, right? So yeah, no, I think like it's not like growth strategy, but I think just general
Mm-hmm.
approach, and it's something that I've maybe also seeing how we used to execute at Zomato. One of the things that at least I try to take inspiration from our team that was executing there, that that I bring to Threado is like do things, but like do it like slightly differently
Yeah,
with everything, and basically have fun,
yeah,
right? And because I think SaaS can be like very very serious, like and most of it
yeah,
is like, hey, uh, do we'll make you efficient, we'll like do this, there's AI,
yes.
all of that, but I think people resonate with just simple words and having fun
Yeah.
more. So we try to do that. I think we can do a lot more than what we do. But that was a good fun way to like launch. I think it went well. Um, I've also told the team that let's do more of it this year.
Yeah, that's fun. I'm looking forward to it. But like, what were the growth strategies, most effective strategies you used for your customer acquisition?
Yeah. So historically, we've been more, what's worked for us has been more, I'd say, inbound or brand activity that we've been doing. I think like right from the start, we focused more on establishing a brand voice, the way we talk about things, and but at the core of it was like add value outside of our product to our persona, right? And if we do that, like with zero intention of them using the product or not, right? So we in the past we've done things like the resources for community builders or support leaders that help them solve their problem without using Threado essentially. So we understand we
Mm-hmm.
do these customer interviews like always, and some of the problems keep coming up, and I think a lot of times we assume that only a product can solve the problem, but that's not true,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you're able to provide a framework or learnings and our own point of view, add all of that and create great resources. I think people um, tend to consume that, and it adds value hopefully.
Yeah,
So that's worked well for us, right? So purely that if I had to boil it down, yeah, there's content led marketing.
yeah.
So like content would be that. The community led growth has been another key pillar for us. We have our
Mm-hmm.
own community initiatives. So we have a Slack community as well. We have a podcast where we interview support leaders and community leaders, and that's been
Mm-hmm.
going on for about 40 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we participate in industry communities as well, like support driven and so on. So that's where we connect with others and learn about the problems and so on. So I think these two channels have helped us most, content and community
Mm-hmm.
led growth. Um, the others, we are starting to work on, like outbound is something that we were still very early. I don't think we've done that
Mm-hmm.
well in the past, but hopefully that
Mm-hmm.
changes this year. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks for letting us know about that. So regarding the feedback, right? I want to know like how do you iterate your product? Like how did your customer discovery calls, for example, shape your product roadmap and
Mhm.
lead to specific feature developments, for example?
Yeah. So I think discovery is a core part of what like the discovery calls help us form an opinion or a gut feel on, this is what we're betting on.
Yes,
There's obviously like in the early stages, a lot of gut and intuition plays a role. But that gut or intuition develops from one is your own
experience. Yeah,
experience, right? And two, but the experience could be in the past, so
yeah,
or you could be like current. But I think one is internal, and then second is validating it with, okay, it's not just me who is facing this problem or has this
yeah.
opinion, but I can see like others talking about the same things and valuing the same things. So
Mm-hmm.
um, so that yeah, so we constantly like me, my co-founder, our head of product, like we're constantly talking to customers, right? Our growth
Mm-hmm.
lead as well. Um, so that like almost like a lot of our team members, like are constantly talking to the customer. I think very
Mm-hmm.
very core part of how we learn on, are we on the right path, right? And we are okay with
Mm-hmm.
discarding a lot of the roadmap if an insight emerges and we feel strongly about it, that okay, like my co-founder, head of growth and head of product, like we have discussions every couple of weeks, and
Okay.
that sort of forms our, like we have a roadmap, but it's not set in stone. So
Yeah,
in these discussions we might just say, okay, like we spoke to these customers, we are hearing this, let's double down on this, like not focus on the rest of the things, right?
got
And
it.
one of the things which, and we've learned it the hard way, is when we started out in the early days, I think we would have 10 things that we are working on to roll out. We've
Mm-hmm.
sort of reduced that to like, it's going to be only one thing, right? And, and that will focus at a time. And then once we've taken it to some shape, then we move on to the next
Mm-hmm.
item, right? So that's helped us move faster. So be it the integrations or anything like that, like, right now the team is just focused on Threado AI. We've been shipping integrations almost like on a weekly basis. So
Mm-hmm.
um, that's because the entire team is just focused on like one thing.
One
Yeah.
stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good strategy. So
Hmm.
that's one thing, right? You get the user feedback and you build features. But how does
Yeah.
Threado measure the impact of AI and customer support? Like, are there any specific
Hmm.
metrics or you look at? Are there any success stories you can share that,
Yeah.
significantly improved quality or customer satisfaction?
Yeah. So in terms of metrics, I think like, the couple of them for sure, which we impact. One is like, improving the handle time per ticket.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. Second is the although this is not measurable for every response, but like the customer satisfaction score is another. Like if you're able to, so yeah, reduce the handle time. The second is the delight factor. So the delight factor
Mm-hmm.
is not just like the customers has like rated a 5 star,
Mm-hmm.
but as a user, I would prefer if the resolution comes in one shot versus
Mm-hmm.
having a back and forth over, let's say, 10 conversations, right?
Yes.
So we see that as another metric, like
Mm-hmm.
what percentage of queries where we assisted, like we were able to assist in one shot itself, right? Like, and
Okay. Yeah.
that's one. And third, it's hard to measure, but I think we reduce the amount of time that goes into training new support agents, and
Mm-hmm.
ramp up their ramp up time is faster with
Mm-hmm.
us, right? But yeah, those would be three metrics I think, like that we really focus on right now. Yeah.
Got it. So implementing AI in customer support, comes with challenges like you have to maintain personalization and also sometimes
Mhm.
deal with complex queries, right? This user's
Yeah.
language comes in different forms. Like, what are the biggest challenges for Threado has faced, implementing AI into their product?
Yeah. So, yeah, the couple of challenges come to mind. One is localization, definitely, right? Like we just had a call today with a customer who
Mm-hmm.
um, wanted to know. I mean, they serve Indian tier two markets, right? And
Mm-hmm.
um, while we're able to, if you ask a question in Hindi, like we're able to respond in Hindi and so on. But the problem was, how do we handle questions in English, like, where people type in English, but it's Hindi words like uh,
Oh,
and
okay.
MAIN and so
Yeah,
on.
I get it. Yeah.
So, I mean, although not like a priority one problem, but that's interesting, like,
Yeah.
to get to, like, can it understand based on like past conversations and so on, right? So
Mm-hmm.
one of the challenges is definitely localization, and the second one is not, I wouldn't say personalization, but customer context. So if, let's say, you have interacted
Mm-hmm.
with a brand 5 times before, and
Mm-hmm.
can that, and let's say you're on a product plan which is um, one out of the four product plans that are out there, and maybe you had a couple other interactions on different platforms with the brand. How can you take all of that and then form a response that, like, the best in class customer support agent would actually do that? Like, they will
Mm-hmm.
know that, okay, you're let's say, a person who's had 5 interactions before, and this is the
Now,
context of it, and
yeah.
then with that, they would respond. So that is a challenge which we're working towards, and because we're able to integrate across multiple platforms, and we are planning to also integrate CRM, so, like, get context from HubSpot and Salesforce, and that sort of feeds into how the agent should ideally respond, essentially.
Got it. So it's
Mhm.
improving efficiency for agents.
Yeah, the other part is also how can the support leaders get more insights,
About,
and
yeah.
and yeah, about what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a age-old problem as well. So at Zomato, I was leading a support team for about a year and a half in um, in sometime 2015. The things that I cared about was, like, hey, we are getting, let's say, 100 queries. What are people,
Mm-hmm.
like, uh, facing issues about, or what are these queries about, and
Yes.
then why are some of these queries taking so much time to resolve, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a better way to handle it.
Handle it.
So
Yeah.
that I think is bread and butter to support. So it's always, it's a challenge that doesn't seem to go away.
Yes. Always.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of information about Threado.
Mhm.
Really insightful session. Before I let you go today, one question obviously I ask every entrepreneur. Like, for those who are venturing into AI entrepreneurship space, like, what advice would you give based on your experiences of building and founding and growing Threado AI?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, like, first thing is always take advice with pinch of salt. Like, the context is always different, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that there is so much advice out there. I always feel like, sometimes just, lead with intuition,
Yeah.
and what you hear from customers. Like, always value that, and just stay focused. Um, so why I'm saying starting with that is, you will always find advice that confirms a bias that you have. Like, if you want to
Yes.
seek, I'm just hypothetically saying, if you want to
Validation.
seek
Yeah.
advice for companies that have turned around, you will get advice that'll show you examples of companies that have turned around. But at the same time, if you
Mm-hmm.
want to get advice for, hey, like, things are not working out, like, what should be the options, or, like, things are not going, you will get a lot of advice which will tell you to not, like, it's not working, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, always take it with pinch of salt. But I think, like, AI obviously is a crowded space. So I think it's important to find the narrow use case that makes sense and go deeper. I feel intuitively, like I think, like the deeper we go into one, like that wedge, um like rather than being horizontal, find that one thing which could be one industry, one function, but go deeper, try and solve problems for that persona in that
Mm-hmm.
industry more, and not using AI for the sake of AI, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's my only advice. I think, like, just find that narrow
Right. Yeah.
use case. Yeah, yeah. Um, Otherwise, yeah, I think, like, the other thing for anyone starting out, I'd say, is, what you start out with never is going to be the same. I'd highly be surprised if over the course of, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years, if what folks start out with, the product has not changed. It's completely normal to pivot and change direction,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if that's happening, it actually means that you're listening to customer market signals and taking a call, right? And I think a large
Yeah.
part of the startup journey is learning and, like, being able to do that.
Yeah. So thank you for the advice. That's it for today. Thank you, Pramod, for joining and providing our listeners with information on Threado AI.
Thanks, Srilakshmi. Thanks so much for having me.